carried on. I basically take the opposite standpoint against capital punishments, and atoning for a crime by death is not a fundamental solution for human society in the sense of whether or not we give criminals a chance to look back what they actually did and reform themselves. So I think capital punishment is what is called legal retaliation against those who committed a felony in a society. So no matter how much we bring right logical argument to appeal for legitimacy of the punishment against what a prisoner did and what a criminal did, impression and conviction of juries and judges in a court have a great impact on the judgment they make. So in a short, what I want to say here is like a strong conviction that this prisoner, this criminal, must be terminated from society, and strong feeling like he did terrible things in a society. So we never forgive him, and we want him to undergo a capital punishment or one of the decisive factors to make a judgment on punishment of a prisoner in a court generally. So even juries and judges who look home have a certain resentment and the feeling of retaliation inside their mind against criminals and prisoners when making a decision, when making a judgment in a court, I think. So needless to say, as is often the case with the court, the results of judgment is changeable depending on the criminal's impression given to judges and juries in a court. So even though a lady justice is a symbol of legal world, people who make the judgments largely take such people's emotion into account when they make judgment, and then when they decide the level of punishment of prisoners and criminals in a court. So after all, even though capital punishment is legally accepted in some countries, I personally think this is essentially a pretty close to a circle of retaliation. So we human beings can't discuss anything without emotion in any situation. So generally, recognizing cruelty of the crime and deciding the level of punishment equivalent to this crime is judged by humans' emotion in the end, even if judges and juries commonly refer to the article of the law, because the decision of what kind of law and what kind of article of the law can be applied to this case is made by their emotion in the end. So after all, we human beings, more or less, I believe, after all, we human beings more or less take advantage of the emotion of resentment when finally making a decision in a court. So of course, I've never ever experienced a situation where my close friends and someone in my family were murdered cruelly. So I actually don't understand how strong resentment and how strong sense of retaliation against criminal survivors have. So that's why I calmly and I easily reach this kind of conclusion. But basically, I always look at the big picture of capital punishment in a sense of how we can get out of the trap of legality of circle of retaliation in a society by means of capital punishment. So setting capital punishment to a judicial system takes a role of maintenance of social security and social peace to some extent, as a matter of fact. But rather than that, what I'm really worried about the most is like, emotion of retaliation will be propagated around our society. So, it is not that everybody can accept right arguments and justice activities, even though law and justice are recognized as one of the, absolute rules that we must not break, and we know or we must undergo punishment if we violate this absolute rule in our society. Of course, survivors of murder person have strong resentment against a criminal, but survivors of person died from capital punishment have also great resentment against judicial system, or survivors of a victim of homicide incident. That is totally preposterous. But there is, retaliation. There is a retaliation, and we have a retaliation in our society. So then they turn their wrath against a society that legally abandons a killer guy, and one of them just commit a new crime as retaliation, driven by a strong resentment and strong sense of retaliation. So in a sense, that circle of retaliation continues endlessly. So the activity of killing someone has a bad influence on our society, no matter how it is executed by a justice and law, or it is just a criminal homicide. So the stance that violence resolved with violence will never bring us generosity and mercy in our minds. So in Christianity, if we repent of our sin, we are saved and we are forgiven. So in that sense, punishment should be not termination, but punishment should be correction and relief from the way of evil. So we have to save these people. So if I say this, there may be a lot of people who object against what I say, but I think there is at least some kind of responsibility for even us as a member of the society that makes the cause of extreme poverty and crimes that are mostly attributed to this extreme poverty. So we patiently have to look after criminals with an undeveloped spirituality until they repent of their sin and reflect on their selfishness, and realize the importance of walking the path of righteousness in a society. So this is very important for a single step for us to confront the circle of retaliation. But how we can do this is a kind of very difficult question to be answered. The lack of capacity of prison is a social problem in the world, including even in Japan, and the number of guards are limited in the prison. But I think the top priority thing that we must do is to make a good society where we have generosity each other, and where we have a sense of mercy each other, and have no feeling of retaliation with each other. So, but sometimes I think that's asking too much, because the number of people who are backstabbers with no conscience doing evil to others skillfully without violating the law is overwhelmingly larger than the number of criminals and the number of prisoners incarcerated in the prisons in any countries. So we are imperfect existence, so we have to watch mutual growth, and sometimes we have to encourage someone to get out of the way of evil and correct the way of thinking. So if we terminate a criminal who kills someone, he ended up leaving this world, even without having a chance to look back what they actually did, and without having a chance to realize the evilness of what actually he did. So in the short run, this will work in a sense that we eliminate disturbing factor that threaten our society and social security. But someone, surely inherits. Someone surely inherits the feeling of retaliation and the emotion, and this will cause another crime. So this is what I'm really worried about the most in terms of capital punishment.